Okay, thank you everyone again for being here for this meta hour. It's fine. It's being recorded, so we can watch this later and practice. Coming back to the practice, right? This one of the reasons why Stephen, Krister, and I wanted to record these sessions was so that you can in the future, do a retreat and have this content and these videos to help guide you so that you can, come back to the practice and review and continue to stay with the practice. So hopefully it will be helpful. And thank you so much to Stephen for taking the time to edit these videos and upload them to the website. He's doing so much in the background on this retreat. So thank you so much, Stephen, for your tireless effort to make sure that these teachings are accessible. Today we are going to explore the heart quality of upekkha or equanimity. And oftentimes equanimity is taught as like the fourth Brahma Vihara, and mudita or joy is taught third. But I thought we could just play with it because why not? And I thought we could play with doing equanimity earlier, partly because I think it really draws some good, interesting comparisons and contrast. It creates a contrast to what Stephen talked about in the last Dhamma talk and what he will probably talk later today or tonight. So, um, yeah, I thought it would be nice to kind of bring in upekkha as a heart quality, um, as a way to perhaps understand the multifaceted nature of what equanimity is and how it is cultivated in the practice and how it's different than perhaps the result of the practice or what is cultivated as a result of insight. So equanimity is something from like a heart quality as one of the four Brahma Viharas. It is something we can practice and we can train in. And so right from the beginning of our development of insight and clarity, we can start developing this heart quality. And so I want to go over some of I just want to share some things with you today that I have found helpful and share some stories and some relation, some ways of relating to equanimity to make it a little bit more concrete and a little bit more tangible. Oftentimes, equanimity can be like this amorphous, vague thing that we don't really know what it is or how to touch it or feel it. So I wanted to make it a little bit accessible today. And then, because we do want to cover all the four Brahma Viharas, I'll bring back mudita later in a future metta hour conversation. So, upekkha, this mind of equanimity, this heart mind, this heart quality of equanimity is a balanced mind state. It's a balanced heart, and it's very spacious, and it's really calm and radiant. So, because it is Brahma Vihara, it is a heart quality that relates to the non-reactivity to what shows up in our life. And it also, because it's a Brahma Vihara, it is a quality of love. It is a quality in metta. It is a quality that empowers and balances metta, mudita, and karuna. So really, when we are practicing metta and mudita and karuna, when we're practicing those other three, we inadvertently, in order to practice them, with right effort, we will be including equanimity, because equanimity balances these other three mind states, these other three hearts. And equanimity, when we cultivate it as a Brahma Vihara, it creates the sense of well-being and balance and the sense of care. It's imbued with a sense of care. It is a quality of loving kindness. It is a quality within compassion. So it's sometimes people can think equanimity is dry or it's indifferent. And actually, that's indifference is the near enemy of equanimity. So if we start to feel like, oh, I'm starting to not care, or there's this like the sense of apathy that starts to enter our heart when we're practicing equanimity, we'll be on the lookout for that, and we'll notice, oh, that's not quite it. That's not it. It's not indifference. We do care. It is a loving heart, a loving, wholesome quality, but it's balanced. And so it's balanced in between these extremes of indifference and caring too much to the point where we become dependent on the outcomes of our compassion practice, or when we, and I'm sure that I'm not alone in having experienced this before, where we develop compassion or loving kindness for another, and we say or do things with that loving heart, but then uh, perhaps there we start hoping that something will happen as an outcome of that compassion or of that loving kindness. And if it doesn't happen, like if our friend who we're sitting with and developing compassion for and we're sitting with them, if they don't suddenly become happy, then we get aggravated and annoyed. We're like, well, why aren't you happy yet? I've been with you all week. Like, you gotta snap out of it, right? So, so equanimity is this balanced heart that brings balance to all the other three. And it really protects us. It protects our heart from this indifference or this uncaring, and it also protects us from the expectations of needing things to be different. And because it's balanced, it makes all the other three Brahmaviharas strong and really stable, and therefore like very effective. And this is an important quality to develop, because there are so many situations that can unbalance us. Right? There's so many situations in the world that can knock us off of our balance, or our center of balance. And there's this Taoist saying by, I had heard the saying, but I found out it was by Chuang Tzu. And there's this quote by him that's really beautiful. He says, when you open your heart, you get life's 10,000 sorrows and 10,000 joys. Right? So as um, we practice the wholesome, as we practice these kusala mind states, as we practice the Brahma Viharas, we are opening our heart. And as we open our heart, we're going to come in contact with all these 10,000 sorrows and 10,000 joys. There's going to be beautiful things that we're opening our heart to. You know, like it's again springtime in the United States. It's just so lovely to hear the birds just chirping away in the sunshine. It's so beautiful. That for me is like one of the 10,000 joys. But then there's the 10,000 sorrows that we also see, where we see, I don't have to name them. We know when our heart is filled with sorrow, we see things that are sad in our world. But we're opening to them, right? We're opening to both the joyful as well as the sorrow. And it's not just like one or two things that are joyful or sorrowful. It's 10,000 on both sides. So, and we don't want to numb ourselves to life, right? It's indifference. We don't want to numb ourselves. So, how do we find balance in the midst of these 10,000 joys, 10,000 sorrows? We develop this heart of equanimity, how we've been talking about in the last few sessions. It's this ability to be with, and with this balance, accepting and being with the joy, accepting and being with the sorrow, not being swayed into despair or into overexcitement. In addition to these 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows appearing, the things that appear in our life are constantly changing. right? So one day might be filled with joy, and then the next day is filled with sorrow. So, and our joy can turn into sorrow, and our sorrow can turn into joy. This is the quality of reality of impermanence, or in Nietzsche, things are constantly changing. So when we can't hold on to the good fortune, we can't, and we can't, we don't have to hold on to the sorrow either because it's constantly changing. And there's another uh, Taoist story that I wanted to share because I really like it. And I think it illustrates this quality of equanimity to go with the flow of life with this open heart amidst joy and sorrow. So I want to read it. It can be another bedtime story for our European friends. Some bedtime story. I like that. I like that having a theme of bedtime stories. That's nice. So, story goes, a long time ago, oh, it's the story of the farmer, the Taoist story of the farmer. You may have heard it, but hang with me. So it goes, a long time ago, a poor Chinese farmer lost a horse. Horses are pretty important to farmers, right? They're like, and they're very valuable. So losing a horse would be not a good thing, right? It would be misfortune. So when the neighbors found out, they all came around and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That's too bad." The farmer replied, "Maybe." Shortly after, the horse returned and brought with it another horse. And when the neighbors noticed, they all came around and said, "Well, that's amazing fortune. Congratulations, that's wonderful." And the farmer replied to them, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer and his son were trying to tame the new horse. As the son was taming the horse and was trying to mount it, the the son fell off the horse and broke his leg. And all the neighbors came around and seeing his son's broken leg said, "Well, that's too bad." And the farmer said, "Well, maybe." See where we're going with this? This maybe? Shortly after, the emperor declared war on a neighboring nation and ordered all the able-bodied men to come and fight for him. Many died or were badly maimed, but because the farmer's son had a broken leg, he was unable to fight and was spared due to his injury. All the neighbors came around and said, "Well, that's great good fortune." To which the farmer replied, "Maybe." And the story continues. And so, what I love about this story is really the farmer's equanimity. That's what I really love. Uh, this the way that the farmer can just stay so balanced and so steadfast, accepting what is coming in his life and not necessarily making a firm like stance on saying, "Hey, this is bad fortune or this is good fortune." So he kind of he lets equanimity balance his heart, staying open to what's arising, but he doesn't get trapped in the sorrow or the joy. And he does so as things are continually changing around him. And as he does that, there's the possibility of having peace, this peace of non reactivity and of going with the flow of life. And, in that story, a lot of the change was what we can boil down to in Buddhism. We can boil down a lot of these changes of joy and sorrow into what's called the eight worldly concerns. This is like, I love also this way of understanding and breaking down change because it really, most everything can fall within these categories of these eight worldly concerns. And we can watch our mind and notice when we become off balanced or we lose our equanimity in relationship to these eight worldly concerns. So these eight are pain and pleasure, right? We continually want to get rid of pain and get pleasure. But we don't, with equanimity, we can embrace both of those things with this balanced heart. Because pain and pleasure, gain and loss, fame and disrepute, and praise and blame. So they're kind of like opposites each other, right? Pain and pleasure, gain and loss, fame and disrepute, and praise and blame. And so part of what we can do in this equanimity practice is we can, when we experience any of these 8 concerns, any of these things, we can just notice and watch our heart and see if it begins to despair or if it begins to become too elated. And it's really interesting to do, and just watch your heart's reaction to them. And when you notice it, you can come back to this equanimity, this balance of your heart. And being on this retreat has been so wonderful. I'm so grateful to be able to participate as a member and also help facilitate. And it's been kind of something that I've been intentionally trying to watch because you all are very nice people. And Stephen and Krister and I, we're getting a lot of really positive feedback about the retreat, which is so nice. Like we're really happy. But also, it's like I'm watching my mind to make sure that it's not getting too elated or swayed with praise, because that would make my mind off balance and it could make me develop, act or say or do things that could be selfish or unwholesome. Right? So I don't want to be swayed by the praise. And likewise, if someone comes to me and says, I hate the retreat, you're a horrible teacher, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, okay, watch my mind. Make sure I don't get swayed into this, the blame, or becoming despondent or despairing if someone speaks disparagingly about me. And so when you have equanimity, you have this like North Star, this like anchor point where you can say, okay, this is what balance and equanimity feels like. And whenever it starts to tilt in one of the other directions, you can come back to it and let your heart enjoy the peace of not being swayed by praise or blame. And this is also a really good practice on social media. Uh, Social media, the way that it's designed and the way that we interface with it, with usernames and with, pictures that are often heavily edited and photoshopped and staged. It's really a breeding ground for a lot of unwholesome behavior where people will blame people or attack people and not realize that what they're doing or saying could hurt other people, their feelings or their reputations. And so, something that I try to keep in mind when engaging on Reddit or other social media is just to, like, again, watch my mind. If someone is criticizing me or blaming me or defaming me, I look at it, watch, see my heart, okay, come back. And from a balance point of equanimity, I can, in fact, look at what they're writing and say, okay, is there any truth to what their comments are? Because as insight meditators, we are looking for the truth. We're always looking for the truth. Um, that's part of what it means to practice the Dhamma. We're very deeply interested in the truth. So, okay, is there something true that I can pull from these harsh words? Great. Then I can, with equanimity, acknowledge that or work with that. But if there's not, then I don't. And or if there's more disparaging words than there are truthfulness, then that's fine too. That's okay. As long as I'm grounded in equanimity, I don't have to let the words of praise or blame affect me. And it's definitely easier said than done, but that's why we develop and cultivate this grounding point of equanimity, so that way we can see out from that heart and notice when we become unbalanced. And the Buddha talks about this a lot. He talks about this a lot. And in the Dhammapada, it's a very old text, and I love reading the Dhammapada because it's one of the original writings of the Pali Canon, and they're also just like really short and sweet, almost like poems, kind of like free verse poems, and they go through different chapters and different topics. And I just love always reading the like root teachings of the Buddha because I feel again this connection to early Buddhist teachings, and I know that's what MIDL is based on. So that's also why I connect with MIDL. And in the Dhammapada, the Buddha talks about this not being swayed and by practicing equanimity. And he says this beautiful analogy. He shares, the wind cannot shake a mountain. Neither praise nor blame moves the wise man. So just beautiful, right? The wise man knows to practice like the earth, to practice like this mountain-like quality of not being moved by the changing circumstances of the world around us, by praise or blame, by pain or pleasure, by gain or loss, or by fame or disrepute. So we're practicing this heart quality of non-reactivity with equanimity. It is a calm, cool heart, cooled from the passion and excitement, and also cooled from like the bitter winter of despair. So it's this like this perfect Goldilocks zone, basically, where it's not too hot, heart's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right. Um, and going back to this analogy that I just shared about the Dhammapada with being like a mountain, the Buddha also talks about this in the suttas in the middle length discourses, number 62, where he's giving advice to Rahula about how to practice. And it's such a beautiful sutta because Rahula is the Buddha's son, like his own flesh and blood son. And so if you think of a father's love for their son, the Buddha is going to give his like really best good advice to his son, right? I mean, he gave good advice to everyone, but if you think of like if you're a father or you have a son, you can just consider, yeah, the Buddha has that relationship with this young man, Rahula. So he in this discourse he gives advice to Rahula about how to practice, and he gives a lot of really good advice. It's like very varied. It's like a middle length discourse, so again, it's not too long, it's not too short. But in it, he talks about how to meditate, and he includes this reference that we talk about in MIDL too around the elemental qualities. And Stephen was talking about this earlier about how the elemental qualities, they don't like, which are, hardness and softness, heat and cold, wetness and dryness, stillness and movement. They don't have a Vedic, they don't have a Vedana attached to them. The Vedana kind of is like how Stephen was saying, is a mist around them. And so uh, the Buddha refers to these elemental qualities a lot because in like kind of broken when we break experience down into them or we look into the elemental qualities, we see equanimity, we see this balance, and we see this unswayability into the elemental qualities. They're very like this basic building blocks of our experience. And so he goes through each of the elements where he talks about how to meditate and how to tap into uh, this unshakability that equanimity can become. So I'll just read a little excerpt from it when he talks about the earth. He says, Rahula, meditate like the earth. For when you meditate like the earth, pleasant and unpleasant contacts will not occupy your mind. Suppose they were to toss both clean and unclean things on the earth, like feces, urine, spit, pus, and blood. The earth is not horrified, repelled, or disgusted because of this. And he says, and Sariputta also repeats this refrain, meditate like the earth. When you can meditate like the earth, pleasant and unpleasantness will not occupy your mind. So this quality of is the earth is something that all of us are standing on all the time. It is this super strong foundation for everything we do, even like whether we're sitting, lying down, sleeping, or walking. The earth is always this support underneath us. It's grounding, and it's when it's in this mountain form, it's unmovable. Like the mountains do technically move, but they just move so slowly. They're just so strong and they're so stable. And in that sutta, it's like if you walk down the street, you see people will just toss litter onto the earth, or people will spit onto the earth. And this idea of the earth just being the mother, in the sense that Mother Earth is just totally receptive to everything, and never, as the sutta says, never is disgusted with what is placed upon the earth. It never is repelled or horrified by this. And so this earth, I love this analogy because it really orients me to this sense of balance that equanimity is, the sense of openness and the sense of acceptingness and the unflappability that we can cultivate through this Brahma Vihara. And this is also really important when we're balancing it with, say, compassion or loving kindness or mudita. And I know I already briefly shared about that, but I want to like illustrate it a little bit more, because I think it is helpful to elaborate a little bit. And it's this idea. I know that we've heard this phrase before in our work life, or in our societies, our cultures, especially in professions that are helping professions, right? So this when people who are nurses or teachers or doctors or anyone who works as a helping profession, sometimes we hear in our circle of professions this phrase called compassion fatigue. And it's kind of a misnomer, actually. I mean, those helping professions are deeply compassionate. Like, you can't be a nurse without having deep compassion. You can't be a firefighter without having deep compassion and wishing to serve others. But compassion, uh, it it only gets fatigued if we're not balancing it with equanimity, right? And when we get fatigued, or when I've noticed that I get fatigued in my teaching profession, it's because I'm overexerting myself so much because I don't want to deal or open to the possibility that my help may not be helpful. There's too much expectation tied up into the help. And that expectation, that craving for result, is actually what fatigues us, not the compassion. So when we notice that, we don't want to stop being compassionate, because that would be also unskillful, right? And especially if your livelihood is tied to being in the helping profession, you can't just not show up to work for an extended period of time. Like, you have to show up to earn that living. So rather than stopping your compassionate action, all we have to do is balance it with equanimity, through recognizing that we can only do as much as we can, and we surrender the outcomes of our skillful actions, and we just do what we can. And I find that has been equanimity really resources compassion, because it balances it, and it can help uh, uh, it can help us draw really healthy boundaries to continue our practice of compassion and the other Brahma Viharas. Instead of limiting it, it actually expands our capacity. Um, and additionally, like, you know, caring for another person. I know there's a lot of caring people in this retreat and who are probably going to watch this recording in the future, but it's like when we care for someone, let's say who is sick, or who is maybe our aging parent, or someone who in our family has mental illness, and we're like their main support. So we're really caring for them, right? Uh, we're not just helping them out like one time and then okay, I'll never see them again, right? No, this is like in certain situations in our life we are in a helping position for an extended period of time, and it can be difficult, you know, seeing your family member struggle and potentially hurt themselves, create their own suffering, or struggle with their suffering, with their aging or with their sickness. And so equanimity not only helps prevent us from burning out, but it makes our compassion strong enough where we can go it for like the long haul, where we can be really patient and we can be steadfast so we can continue year after year showing up for that loved one in our family and be with them and not burn out in that way also. And then, you know, this other example, I think is really poignant for anyone who has kids. You know, if you're a parent, you care so much. You care so much about your children. You literally do everything for them. You know, you support them financially, you care about, you emotionally support them, you teach them how to read and how to tie their shoes and how to use the bathroom. Like you teach your children everything and with the help of the community, but you are their primary caregiver for a very long time. And and it's interesting, you know, I watched my mom do this really beautifully. That's why I felt connected to be able to share this because I don't have kids, but I am my mother's daughter. And as a parent, there gets to be a point when you know you've done everything you can for your child, and then, you know, they're 18, 20, 25, you know, they grow up. They grow up to be adults. And there comes a point where you realize that the best thing that you can do for them is be equanimous with the decisions that they make as an adult. And again, it's a good example because as an adult with adult children, it's not like you suddenly don't care about your kids or, you know, they're always going to be your children. They're always going to be your babies. You're always going to be thinking about them and praying for their well-being. Like I know like right now for a fact, my mom is probably thinking about me. She's probably thinking about me, and if I text her right now, she's gonna reply back in literally less than 5 minutes because moms and parents and caregivers and guardians, like you you just dedicate yourself. It's such a deep, profound calling to raise a child. And I really deeply respect that calling. And then as they become an adult, the best way that um, parents and guardians show their children that they love them is to let them make their own choices. They let them make their own mistakes, and they develop equanimity towards what the outcome of their children's lives are. Because they recognize that they don't have control over this, and giving them that space and giving themselves that space is the best thing so that they don't suffer in the process of them growing up and making their own decisions. So that's actually one of the phrases that we'll do in our equanimity practice of the Brahma Vihara that we can do today when we're meditating together. Before, earlier, the phrases have been, may you be happy, may you be free from suffering, um, may I be forgiven, right? Or I forgive you. It's been these phrases that have been like a really strong wish of well-being. and it's been a wish for their happiness. And so with this equanimity phrases, it will still be a caring phrase, but rather than the wish of the caring, we're going to focus on the relinquishment for the outcome as part of the equanimity. So one equanimity phrase that I like that is also traditional, but I like it is uh, this phrase saying that when we bring the being to mind, we'll say, "I care for you, but you are the owner of your own karma. Your happiness and suffering depend on your actions, not my wishes for you." And I like that phrase because it points to the fact that we could and do wish all day long for this person's happiness, but yet our wish for their happiness doesn't necessarily mean that they will be happy, right? It's not up to us to suddenly snap our fingers and make them become happy. It's up, it's their decision, it's their actions which will determine their happiness and their suffering. So we in equanimity we balance this loving wish for metta and karuna through recognizing that we don't have control, and so we surrender the control. We find balance and peace in recognizing that when we let go of expectations, we are free and calm and serene to love them no matter what they choose to do with their life, whether they choose to be happy or choose or end up suffering through unskillfulness. So we can say that phrase. There's other. This is also like a playful practice. I love the Brahmi Viharas because they're very creative. It's not like one size fits all. You can arrange or change the phrases however you want so that they resonate with you. And another phrase that you might enjoy saying is that may you accept things for how they are, right? So this wish of may you find balance with the joys and sorrows of life, right? May you can also say I care for you, but I cannot keep you from suffering. Right? The sense of relinquishment of like, I can't stop you from suffering, but may you be free. So it's a balancing act that we're doing with these phrases. We're not being indifferent, but we are recognizing that we don't have control over the outcome of our wishes. And I like the idea of you are the owner of your karma because it points back to the wisdom imbued within equanimity that is all beings through their own actions either create the causes of their happiness or their causes of their suffering. And it's the law of karma, right? It's like what we do, what we say, and how we act will have an outcome immediately and probably in the future. So it's like, recognizing that the law of equanimity doesn't discriminate just based on people we like or people we don't like. It's this equalizer. Karma is this equalizer, and it's good because we can orient to understand by orienting to understandings of karma, we can really know what the outcome of our actions will be. And that's more of a talk, like for a later talk, perhaps, talking about more about karma. But this idea of each individual person is the owner of their karma. So um, their actions depend on their happiness. We can't make anyone have happiness. It's up to them. So we can play with those phrases, and we can do it uh, in progression to again like um, in the same way that we can do different categories of beings. We can do equanimity with different categories. So we do the easy person first, which in this case is going to be a neutral person, because a neutral person we don't really have like a ton of sorrow for or a ton of lust for. We just like very balanced, like, oh yeah, okay. What goes around comes around, neutral person. It's like, yeah, okay. Right? I wish you to be happy, but this is up to you. So we start with the neutral person, and then we can do our benefactor, someone who's been very kind and supportive to us. Then we can do a friend, and then traditionally we do an enemy, and then we do ourself, and then we do all beings. So notice our self is, in this case, with equanimity, is actually more towards the end of the categories because it's harder to develop equanimity for ourself because yeah, we tend to really want our own happiness. So we're developing this neutral quality in our metta with this equanimity, this balanced heart that we're cultivating. Okay, so great. Let's go ahead and meditate. So, adjusting your seat, perhaps stretching, rolling your shoulders, finding some ease in your body, allowing your eyes to close. Connecting with our body, and feeling the connection from the support of the earth. Feeling their feet or legs touching the ground, our hips connecting in our cushion or chair. Tuning into the balanced stability of our support beneath us. If you notice the mind becomes distracted with a thought, forgets that we're sitting here, simply relaxing and softening back to the body, enjoying regrounding. And so we can bring to mind a neutral person, perhaps a cashier at the grocery store, a coworker from a different department, someone perhaps we see but don't have a very close relationship with. Just holding the rough general feeling of this person in your heart. We can recognize that they wish to be happy all the time. And so we can say our phrase for equanimity, saying, I care for you and wish for your happiness. but your happiness is dependent on your own actions. Noticing the qualities of this balanced but yet caring heart. If the equanimity begins to fade, we can repeat the phrases, saying, I care for you. I wish for your happiness. But you are the owner of your own karma. Your happiness is not dependent on my wish for you alone. Next, we can bring to mind a benefactor, someone who's perhaps guided you in your life, who has been unusually generous with their skills, time, or resources. Holding them in our heart, we can say, I am grateful to you and care about your well being, but your happiness depends on your own actions. If the feeling fades, we can repeat again in our own way. I deeply care for you, but I cannot prevent you from suffering. Orienting to the truth of this statement to balance and ground our heart. Then we can bring to mind a friend, a comrade, someone we have a friendly, close relationship with. The metta may come easily for this person, and so we can ground and balance it with equanimity, saying, "You are a dear friend, but I cannot determine your happiness or freedom for you. Feeling the openness of this balanced heart, its ability to care for our friend, no matter if they're happy or suffering. Gradually beginning to relax your attention and regrounding it in the borders of your body. Becoming mindful of the resonance of this equanimity in your body, this calm, patient, enduring kindness. That is equanimity. And then when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. And we can recite the Metta Sutta together. Just put this here, the PDF in the chat here. Imaya Dhammanu Dhamma Patiya Buddhang Pujami Imaya Dhammanu Dhamma Patiya Dhammang Pujami Imaya Dhammanu Dhamma Patiya Sanghang Pujami Ahang Awero Homi Abhyapajo Homi Anigo Homi Sukhiyatanang Pariharami Mama Mata Pitu Acharya Cha Natimita Cha Sabrahmacharino Cha Awera Hontu Abhyapaja Hontu Aniga Hontu Sukhiyatanang Pariharantu Imasming Adame Sabe Yogino Awera Hontu Abhyapaja Hontu Aniga Hontu Sukhiyatanang Pariharantu Amakang Araka Dewata Imasming Vihare Imasming Awase Imasming Arame Auraka Dewata Awera Hontu Abhyapaja Hontu Aniga hontu Sukiyatanang Pariharantu Sabe Sata Sabe Pana Sabe Buddha Sabe Pugala Sabe Atabawa Pariyapana Saba Itio Sabe Purisa Sabe Iti Purisa Sabe Anita Purisa Sabe Arya Sabe Anarya Sabe Dewa Sabe Manusa Sabe Winipatika Awera Hontu Abya Paja Hontu Aniga Hontu Sukiyatanang Pariharantu Dukkha Muchantu Yata Lada Sampatito Mawiganchantu Kamasaka Idang no punya bagang Sabah satanang Bajema Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu. Thank you, everyone. Okay, great. So we're at the end of our hour. I do see Jason had their hand up, so I just wanted to see if it was a question about the practice. Oh, I think maybe they put it down. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and dedicate our practice so may all beings be free. And take care, everyone. Have a wonderful sleep. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful afternoon. See you soon. Thank you.